Hello and welcome to another episode of Commander Fodder. So in this episode we're going to be leveraging some of the rares that I pulled for the previous episode of the Deck Durdle. So if you remember, for each set I normally do a Commander Fodder episode based around building from the 6 cards that I pulled as part of the episode of the Deck Durdle, and then also a Commander Fodder episode that's relevant to one of the theme decks in that particular set. So we're on Mercadian Masques at the moment. So you can see here I've sort of started to prep up a little bit just to speed things up. So just to go back through the rares in case you haven't seen the previous episode of the Deck Durdle where I opened 6 virtual packs of Mercadian Masques. So the rares that were in there were Spiritual Focus, Jovial Queen and Arithizon. Now these are in the maybe board because I'm not going to be playing these in the deck. I've decided to go with the black cards, and you'll see in a moment what commander I've also picked. This card here, it was tempting to build a rebel deck. However, I have got a follow-up episode of Commander Fodder where I'm using a theme deck as the fodder, so to speak, as my seed. And that's going to be the Rebel Call one, which is actually a Rebel deck anyway, so I didn't want to double up here because I knew I'd end up with pretty much the same deck. So those are the rares I've chosen not to play. The ones I'm going to play are Unnatural Hunger, Forced March and Instigator. And the main one in here, which is, and you'll see why I've chosen this commander. So when I'm doing these episodes of Commander Fodder, which are based on the cards, I've set myself a little bit of wiggle room in that I don't technically have to just play, as long as the commander includes the colour, that's okay. Because sometimes the card that I choose to mainly build around, the ability is mirrored somewhere else, or in another card which doesn't exclusively have that colour identity. So you can see with Unnatural Hunger, which is the one that I primarily picked to build around, it says at the beginning of upkeep, enchanted creatures controller, at the beginning of the upkeep of enchanted creatures controller, Unnatural Hunger deals to that player damage equal to the enchanted creature's power unless he or she sacrifices another creature. So obviously you would put this on an opponent's creature, and I just really use that as a thematic indicator. I have no idea how long this is actually going to stay in play. Because of course once the opponent's creature dies, then this is just going to go to the graveyard. Now there's obviously ways I can get this back. So I was interested to see Mogis had this ability on it where at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Mogis deals 2 damage to that player unless he or she sacrifices a creature. So there is an element of similarity. The difference being here is you're in control of Mogis and Mogis is doing 2 damage. The other thing here with the 7/5 creature, if you're doing combat damage, that doesn't take many hits to kill someone through commander damage. Now there were 2 other rares that I pulled as part of that previous episode of the Deck Durdle. There's Forced March, which is just basically a mass removal spell of Wrath. So destroy all creatures with converted mana cost X or less. So a bit of flexibility here. And then Instigator, 1 and a black, 1 and 2 black. Discard a card from your hand. Creatures target player controls attack this turn if able. So they're just in there because they're on colour and they have interesting abilities, interesting functionality, but it doesn't necessarily mesh with the ability on Unnatural Hunger. So yeah, so that's, in this case, that's why I'm playing Mogis, God of Slaughter. That was the sort of best match I suppose I could find. There may be other matches with commanders with similar sort of abilities as this, but I thought this would be an interesting one to go with. So, also, to help with the seeding, I've got a number of cards here that currently are sideboarded, but I just want to include them in the deck for various reasons. Seeing as I'm playing black-red, I'm going to include Arcane Signet. Also, I'll be altering my land base accordingly in a moment, but I just wanted to make sure some of these things were included. So that is going to go into my artifact pile. The inbuilt architect algorithm would probably suggest some of these anyway, but I did want to just put them in early on. Palace Siege, I just found interesting utility. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So it's similar in some ways to the ability on Mogis, so I thought that was a interesting card to have in the deck when I'm seeding it. Mind Crank, whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from the top of her library into his or her graveyard. So I figured if I was doing damage to players, I might as well also stick stuff in their graveyard. That gives me a potential side theme here where I could put in cards that steal stuff from opponent's graveyard. I also might want to include some utility cards which deal with players that do want stuff in their graveyard. So anyway, Harsh Mental, whenever an opponent activates an ability or an artifact, creature or land on the battlefield, if it isn't mana ability, Harsh Mental deals 2 damage to that player. So you can see there's a bit of a 2 damage theme here. When an opponent does something, oops. We've got Grey Merchant. I'm playing black. I know I'm playing black-red, but seeing as I've got black, I'm going to put this in as well. It has interesting interactions with some of the other cards I'm playing as well, so that's cool. Dictator of the Twin Gods. If a source would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Cool interaction with Mogis. Cryptolith Fragment. So again, I figured I might as well play a card where you know, I'm playing on those synergies of life loss. Credit Voucher I just wanted to play because it looked like an interesting card. It was pulled as part of the card pool. I don't necessarily always include, you know, all of cards from the virtual pool. I tend to focus on the rares for these episodes, but anytime I see an interesting looking card in there that jumps out, I'll put that in, and this just looked like something interesting to play. 2 to cast, 2 tap, sacrifice Credit Voucher, shuffle any number of cards from your hand into your library, then draw that many cards. There's probably other cards that could do a similar thing at a better cost, but I just thought that was a fun thing to do, just put it in as it was from the set. Archfiend of Despair, flying, your opponents can't gain life. At the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn. Again, you've got this sort of matrix approach going on where stuff is getting, abilities are getting reinforced, synergizing as well. So, and I thought I'd just select a Planeswalker at this point as well. There may be other Planeswalkers in here. +1, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. More interested in the loss of the 2 life. -3, gain control of a target creature until end of turn and tap it, gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step if it has converted mana cost 3 or less. -8, each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in his or her graveyard, which meshes nicely with a card earlier. Where's it gone? Which was effectively milling our opponent. Yeah, there we go. So, got quite a few interesting things going on here. We go. I've already pre-populated the land slot, around 34 land. Obviously I'm going to take basic lands out as I bring in utility lands. Okay, ready to go. Let's get some Rex here. I'll just redo this because it's probably, I did it earlier. I mean, sometimes it's interesting to do the seed on just the cards you have to start with, and then run it. I wanted to add further cards and then run it. So, I mean, it'll probably come out roughly the same. So you can see it's actually recommended a few of the cards that I've already added in. Here I'm just probably looking for interesting utility lands more than anything. Might go in. I was looking for something utility-wise that might allow me to steal stuff from an opponent's library if I'm filling it up. I want to go down. So I've got a number of cards that just damage opponents each turn in various ways, and then cards that sort of amplify that damage. Suppose your opponent's cast costs 2 more to cast. Yeah, stick that in. think I've got any. If I've got any cards that make an opponent shuffle their library, I might come back to that. So I'll play that. I don't always play that. Would I want to lock myself down as well? Probably not. Looks interesting. I tend to forget about these as well, these border posts. I know they're not always played, but they're all interesting. I could stick a Basilisk Collar on Mogis. Just because. Yeah, let's do that. Let's Basilisk Collar up Mogis. Oh, that could be nasty. Yeah, see with Mogis it is tempting to play poison, but that'd be, nah, won't do that. Lots of interesting utility artifacts here, actually. That's why I'm spending a little bit of time. Hopefully you can see this okay. It's more for the benefit of the viewer, so you can just see some of these interesting cards, which is what part of these episodes are about, really. It's just uncovering stuff we've all forgotten about. That's not really going to work. -4. Each opponent's upkeep Wheel of Torture deals 1 damage to that player for each card fewer than 3 in his own hand. Each card fewer than 3. Yeah, let's just do that. Because I probably want to suit up Mogis a little bit as well. God, the list goes on. We're getting a ton of stuff suggested here. Oh, good old Loxodon Warhammer. I think what I will do, be Mr. Predictable, stick Lightning Greaves in there. Right, leave that for the moment. It's 11 artifacts, so we've got quite a bit of artifact in there at the moment, so I might just leave it at that. Okay, let's look at some creature recommendations, shall we? Okay, so we've already got Harsh Mentor. Yeah, seeing as we're just dealing damage to our opponents, or ways of doing that. That's interesting. Yeah, so I like this other theme of like alternate punishments. So you're saying, okay, well, you can let me draw a card, or you can sack a creature, or pay 3 life. Did you play? No. Did that? Let me just... I did put an Archfiend in here, I think. Let me just check that. Oh no, I did. I've got the Archfiend of Despair. So what does the Archfiend of Depravity do? At the beginning of each opponent's end step up to 2 creatures he or she controls. Oh yeah. This is turning out to be a real mean deck. Opponent searches his or her library. Add to any of my things make players search their library? I don't think they do. Food. So we've already got that. Let's put in Burnished Hart for basic land. Yeah. Why not? Slowly draining our opponents as well. Yeah. This is going to put a real target on my head. Yeah. Should have a Harvester of Souls in there. We've got creatures dying. Yeah, we got stuff being sacked, which is good. Massacre Worm. She got from the graveyard to the battlefield. Dear. It's probably built up to be quite an expensive deck, actually. Interesting. Seems to have a Wheel of Fortune stapled onto it. See where we are on the creature side of things. I've got about 20 creatures. That may be sufficient at this point in time. Because I'm going to see what... Obviously, one thing I want to do is enchant up Mogis as well. So, like, buff it up. So we can do damage. I'm going to see if there's one or two other... Actually, we'll do enchantments first. I want to just check and see if there's one or two other planeswalkers I could include. Might be helpful in here. So yeah, I've got a number of enchantments here that again are amplifying a lot of these damage, life loss stuff. Okay, we might as well take some of that to our advantage as well. Captive audience, what we got to? Players can't gain life. Nope. Yeah, why not? Whenever a creature you don't control dies, return its battlefield under your control. Yeah. That's one way of stealing stuff. Okay, Whip of Erebos. We've got lifelink. Return target creature over your graveyard. No. We'll have a Sanguine Bond. So at the moment I'm getting much more suggestions which are synergizing with just the general damage and life loss rather than specifically suiting up Mogis, but that's fine. It's just another way. I try and go with the algorithm suggestions just because it makes for a little bit more interesting deck sometimes. Whenever you or at least one permanent you control becomes okay. Yeah, let's do that. Interesting. I'm not aware of that one. During each player's upkeep, if that player has less life than target opponent. Okay, I'm going to put an Animate Dead in here, just so I can steal stuff in people's graveyard. Do I want to play shrines? Probably not. Interesting. There is probably a lot more, of course, of across the board cards that I could play, which would deal damage to everybody. Just choosing not to do that in this deck. I'm going through it for more asymmetry than symmetry. Oh, I know. Let's just have a quick look at Planeswalkers, see what comes up. Where's it gone? Look it up. Okay, for red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent. Yeah. It's cool. It works well with the commander. Right, let's have a look at see what instance gets suggested. If there's anything I want to play. Okay. Yeah, that's good. I might want to get rid of something. And obviously spot removal at instant speed is always good. So we're going to see some cool spot removal in red black. So that's going to be a handy thing. Probably lots of sort of red black destruction around about 2 or 3 mana that is well costed. Seeing as we're playing black, we might as well play a murder. And Dark Ritual for a speed bump. Well, not a speed bump. What am I saying? Speed increase. Pretty good utility on that. That as well. I think that might be enough instant wise. Let's have a look at some sorceries. It's very nasty. Now I've got to find it. So, in addition to some wrath effects, let's just put a damnation in here. What I'm looking for yeah, let's obliterate. Looking for a way of getting a load of stuff back. Well, that was it. Necromantic selection. Oh, and a lightning. Maybe not. Actually. I think that's that. Yeah, that one. That was what I was trying to find. Okay, got it. Right. Good. Where are we? 95. Right. Okay. We're good. So 5 choices here. I need to balance out the land as well a little bit, or put in a bit more utility in there. Right. Yeah, I'd already been through the artifacts quite a bit, so I don't know if I want to go through there. Did I put in Underworld Dreams? And Royal Enchantments. What about Painful Quandary? let me switch over to lands just while I decide the last 3 cards. So it should be put that in. I'm going to obviously decrease my basic lands accordingly. Now, yeah, I want a Bojuka Bog. Was that one from Urza? Is it Shivan Gorge? I might as well put a Reliquary Tower in there. I'm going to add a Ghost Quarter and a Shivan Gorge. Passage. And a command tower. Okay, we just need to reduce this down a bit. So we will just have a quick look at the stats while I'm in here. Lose some mountains. Could probably lose a few more and gain some swamps, but I'll just leave it at that. At this point when I'm doing these decks, I tend not to worry too much about getting the mana balance perfect. I think you tend to find that out once you start to do a few sample hands. Okay. I put that in here. No, I did not. Okay, so I have a Fiery Emancipation. Yeah, that one's in, I thought so. So, did I do... Bloodchief Ascension. One more. Okay, Shadow. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard for anyone, instead exile it with a void counter on it. Sacrifice, there's choose an exiled card controls with a void counter on it. Okay, yep. Your card. Right, there we go. Oh, only $500. So there we have the Mogis God of Slaughter deck. On there. Again, what I'll do is I will export this and post the deck list in the descriptions. Obviously things that need a little bit more work, and one of the things I do here is I sort of try and avoid having a list of staples or auto includes, but certainly where I would have benefited from that list is I almost feel that it would have been nice to have a list of sort of go-to equipment to maybe equip up Mogis, or some enchantments to enchant up Mogis as well. But I'm sort of pretty happy where we've got these global enchantments which interact in interesting ways with Mogis, and that's really the direction the sort of deck's gone through. The suggestion is obviously Mogis is capable of doing an awful lot of damage, so a lot of these cards amplify that damage in ways different than simply turning it into a Voltron deck purely through, say, in auras or artifacts. We've got sort of cards that double up the damage or leverage the damage in some way, or leverage creatures dying in some way, and so it's just a slightly different line to take than just simply suiting up Mogis on there. And obviously you want that to some degree, because this ability here at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Mogis deals 2 damage to that player. So you want something that's going to amplify up the damage aspect, because then it's going to work both on the ability and on the combat damage. Whereas if you suit it up, then anything you give it, any buffing you give it, is only going to apply to the power toughness and not to this other ability here. But there are some more, there's obviously other cards we can put in similar to Lightning Greaves type cards, particularly ones that give Mogis Shroud as well, which would protect it as well. So that's another angle that it would be possible to go down. I'm trying to think if there's any totem armor as well in black and red. But anyway, that's one for a different deck. So once again, thanks for watching this episode of Commander Fodder. Bye for now.